Y'all have a... Slowly wait for it.
30.
29.
At 28.
27.
26.
25. 24.
23. 22.
21.
20 seconds and counting.
19.
18. 17.
16. 15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10 seconds.
6.
5.
4. And 3.
2.
1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trust No One, the X-Files podcast, where some of my fellow agents and I discuss episodes of the X-Files. Today, we'll be discussing the 12th episode of the X-Files, Season 1. It's called Fire, and it was first aired on the 17th of December in 1993. I'd like to welcome our cast for the day. John, Agent John.
Hello.
And Agent Lisa. And Agent Dan.
Hi.
Thanks for being here, guys. All right.
Thank you.
The latest episode that we've all watched, Fire. General impressions. Just start us off. Give me a one-word statement of how you felt about the entire episode. Just one word. One.
Fun.
Fun. Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay.
I think cheesy.
Okay, cheesy. I like it.
Intriguing.
And Agent Dan?
Intriguing.
Intriguing. I think I will go with
10, 9.
I think I will go with challenged.
Okay.
Pressured me
Would you
with
like to
time.
explain that?
I think let's do that as we go through the conversation today.
All
All right,
right.
because I would agree with all of you. There were some really great things in the episode, but there was something that I found challenging, and I think we can talk about that. So what we'll do today is we'll address a couple of questions that have been generated by the crew here. So let's start with what's the deal with the painting?
Yeah.
So
what is
I
the
think-
deal with the painting? That was one of my questions.
That was the painting
feel
that
like-
appeared in
there
the
were-
house, right? The new house.
Yes. I feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities in this episode. I feel like there were a lot of moments that they started to develop and then they got lost. And for me, that was the biggest one. That's never explained. Or did I miss something?
Yeah, it did seem to kind of stand out, right? It looked like the wife,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I guess we were meant to infer that the artist was the man acting as the caretaker, right?
See, I don't know.
Anybody else?
There was not enough information given about him or about anything to come to any conclusion. I didn't think. I thought it was really a missed opportunity. I feel like it was going to be something, and somehow it got lost in either the edit or what
Well,
did
they
you
said
guys
something-
think? I'll shut up. And I
They
mean,
said
what-
something about love letters going to all the previous
right.
families, right? All the
Right.
previous people who were attacked. So love letters went to the wives. So maybe it was a fixation. Maybe it was part of
thought-
this.
Did he see the picture and that's why he was obsessed with her? But he wouldn't have seen the picture because he hadn't been to the house until he followed her there. So that didn't make sense.
Agent Bennett, I saw you were nodding a second ago. What do you think?
Yeah,
about that?
I think it's an example of his willingness and desire to kind of trap women. And I think there's a sort of gothic kind of horror-esque like thing, isn't there, of, the monsters that lurk and possessing women and controlling women and eliminating all other male rivals so you can fully possess them. And, like, it goes back into all your classic tropes from literature, doesn't it? Of, My Last Duchess painted on the wall or whatever else, stick them in a frame, possess them. And of course, what he's done to the painting is covered it in fuel. So, he gets to literally frame her and destroy her if she won't conform to his wishes. So I think it's all about control. And even if he hasn't painted it himself, he spends a lot of time looking at it, and it's very prominent the whole way through. So I think it's about the objectification of women, personally.
The part that made me kind of shake my head, as in, I know it didn't make sense, was the fact that the husband commented, oh, look at that painting, it looks rather like you, doesn't it, dear? And that was it. It was done. No one said, that's very awkward.
It just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
that just didn't go anywhere.
Agent Lisa, Agent Dan, you want to comment on that particular topic?
It went over my head. I have no idea what was going on with the painting, why we kept having to look at it, why so often, and why for so long. Yeah. But I just figured that it was some sort of symbolism that I was too dumb to understand. I think Agent Bennett got there a lot further than I did. Meow.
Okay, fair enough.
And to me, it sort of occurred that it was like it did seem quite gothic and one in a way. Because I thought, well, it's similar to, the significance of paintings and stuff like the painting of Dorian Gray and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Agent Bennett. I think that about the Gothic kind of nature, the British. There's an element of British culture, British history, British. There's a lot of reference points that point to maybe that kind of Gothic overtone for the episode. Okay, so I'll go to the next question. Maybe we'll get a little more specific about the character. Did you think Cecil Lively is recognizable from the artist's portrait? That was a question that someone asked.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fairly deft, classic kind of sketch, and the eyes are so intense, aren't they? That's the thing about the performance and that actor anyway, is that what he manages to do with just eyes is extraordinary. So if you capture that in the sketch, you've kind of got him pinned down. And I liked that actually he was then being kind of caught via that, actually. So that he was now literally being framed and literally being kind of delivered and therefore being able to be hunted because of that. I enjoyed that bit.
Yeah, there's a nice parallel there with that touch. And it was also nice if you go from the Gothic imagery to the modern, right? Painting versus a sketch, but it's been transferred via what was it? Fax? It was fax, right?
Yeah. Especially modern at that time.
Right. So I would
they
agree.
even mentioned how few of them had the technology to send it that quickly.
And the transition from the fax image to the overlay of his image, his face, right, really sold the point very nicely.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, well, it looked just like him. Yeah, I mean, they had the different shaped eyes, which all of us have to a certain extent. Obviously, it's done much better than I don't know, maybe sketch artists are that good, but it looked just like him, and that worked. And I guess we can look at that and say, okay, there's some connection between the painting and that catching him through that. Okay.
To me, it never looks like the actual person, but I think it may be due to the sheer number of times I've seen this episode.
Well, the actor himself went on to do a lot of bit roles for a while, but then established himself quite nicely in television dramas of the era and the early 2000s. So, and then even into the 2010s with his recurring role on Supernatural. So, he's a good character actor, I thought.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. Yeah, I liked him a lot. Very creepy. Good creepy acting.
Do you think there's any... Sorry, go ahead, please.
I was just thinking, like, this episode required quite a lot in regard to, like, accents, the different accents he did.
Yeah, I liked his deftness in switching from the English to the British accent. I thought he was good with that. I liked him a lot. Yeah.
Do you think there's any significance to the Sherlock Holmes references?
Well, it all goes back to her, doesn't it? I mean, it's all about that relationship between, well, not only Chris Carter's obsession with Sherlock Holmes, but it's so quintessentially British to so many Americans, and so bringing her in and having that all tied to Sherlock Holmes, was kind of a natural beat, I think, and I think that it's a little overly played, but I like it. I just think it was a little too heavy-handed, but
I think you've got both the Sherlock Holmes stories and the X-Files with a pair of protagonists, one of whom is like basically they're going on cases and they're writing up notes afterwards, like John Watson is who apparently writes the books in the Sherlock Holmes story, a bit like Scully is writing up the notes with the X-Files in like this series.
Yeah, I think that works well. And I think ultimately, I don't know, I guess I've grown up with Sherlock Holmes to the point where I know it really, really well. And I've seen some terrible kind of versions of it that are either romanticized or glamorized or whatever. Sherlock Holmes was like a massively addicted, narcissistic sociopath in lots of ways. Yeah. And you can say he's a genius, and he absolutely is, but he doesn't care. He's interested in problem solving for problem solving's sake, right? And there's loads of like reinterpretations of the character of Irene Adler, who only features in one of the stories, and they reinterpret it as Sherlock falling in love. He absolutely doesn't. He respects her as a wit, as an intellectual equal. She's a dominatrix, which I think is interesting because clearly Phoebe Green's supposed to be Irene Adler, but it's like, and in a way she totally dominates him, I agree, and she causes him a lot of pain, so maybe that's it. But this whole like sentimentalizing and like, oh, we had sex on his tombstone, it's like, A, that's the wrong tombstone, he's not even buried there, and B, no thank you, it's so naff. For me it just felt like greatest hits of Sherlock with a romantic twist. So
that's why I say it was so heavy. It was so heavy-handed. We got it. We get it.
I always thought the way that the story portrays Irene Adler is like because it refers to her as she was the woman and stuff like that.
Yeah, but never in a romantic way. It's the one woman he respects.
That's right.
And that's because she's his intellectual, and actually she outdoes him in intellectual terms. And you can argue that sort of Phoebe plays the game, but of course she's not playing a very complicated game. She's just flirting with him, isn't she? And then she's just, flirting with the husband as well. So it's like,
oh my God, that was a huge mistake.
Yeah,
that part of the episode, I really think that killed any chance of the audience getting on her side.
Okay, let's hold off on that particular discussion because we are going to have a couple of questions that are pertaining to that, and I'd like to get to some specific kind of topics with regards to that. So relating to that, between which characters, if any, would you say there was sexual chemistry? Agent Lisa,
you haven't said anything.
What would you say? Yeah.
It was just between Mulder and Scully. Like, I think that dynamic between Mulder and Green was forced and cartoonish. But maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm biased because I found her character to be such a huge turnoff. I mean, this like insecure and yet arrogant attention-seeking, sloppy narcissist that kept shaking her terrible haircut around. Like, just put that away. I didn't, and I just didn't believe it, man.
Wasn't
like,
terrible for the time, for the era. That pixie
I
cut
agree,
was,
though. I don't feel like there was
If you
any
wanna argue
chemistry
that,
between the
like,
actors. There was no chemistry.
No,
Yeah.
there was
They
no
had no
chemistry.
chemistry.
No,
Okay.
no,
I
there
thought
was
there
no
was great
that
chemistry.
that kiss that they finally shared after what was supposed to be a smoldering buildup was like just it was passionless and awkward.
I think there's a lot more chemistry in that that character connection that there is between Mulder and Scully in this by this episode.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's great chemistry.
Yeah.
between Mulder and Scully.
I think there's great chemistry between Phoebe Green and Mulder.
Oh, I see.
I think I would say that initially that there is, and then things go sideways and
So
Do you
in
not think she just
Destroy
flirts with all
that.
the guys in the same way though? Like even when they're
No, I
not
don't think
talking
so.
to the fire expert, she's just like looking all coy and oh yes, and he's going, oh, you've got a hot case or whatever the terrible line was. I mean, some of the lines in this are naff, right?
yeah,
No,
And that
I-
bit
I
there was
think-
like, oh god, she's just hitting on him now, or she's just like
Yeah.
playing the little coy. Oh
no,
yeah,
I
look at it.
don't think so. I
Mm.
think that he's hitting on her, but I don't think it's returned.
okay.
I did like the actor that played the creepy pyrotechnic expert. I love the idea that he's kind of getting off on it, because he's just as obsessed. I mean, that's why he has that as a career, because he's obsessed with fire, And I did like, I liked that,
From the outset, Scully doesn't really like Green, right? So was that established too quickly in the episode? Was the buildup, was there not enough buildup?
Well, there
she
was no
jealous?
build-up.
No, because Green was unpleasant from the moment she
Okay.
acknowledged Scully. She was like, haha, like I've got Mulder and you don't, haha. And it's like, just shut up. Just oh Christ. Be pleasant, be an adult.
Once again, though, it's like too quick. I mean, one of her first lines is, "She doesn't like me."
Mhm.
I mean,
She
she says
hates
that almost from the outset.
Was Scully jealous of Green? Do you think?
No, she hasn't got anything to be jealous about at all. I think she's protective. I think she sees his vulnerability. And I think she's like, oh, okay, I know what this kind of woman's going to do. And I can see that there's something in him that's at risk here. And I'm going to protect him because I care about him. And she does the whole way through.
So she was concerned about the potential heartbreak or potential risk, right? For whatever
I think
professionally or
she was
personally.
jealous. I think she was jealous, but that she was classy about it. The way she expressed her jealousy was a way that a wise and witty and classy adult might express their jealousy. I think she was like burning with jealousy. I think she wanted to be the one slow dancing with Mulder and making out.
I think she was jealous, but didn't know how to deal with that. So she said it was, out of professional concern, but it was again, though, I thought it was too quick. I mean, she immediately hated her, and only just after the cassette, she already hated her. But I think she was really jealous. I think that was a little bit of a mistake to do that so quick with the writing. But that's just me.
I don't think there is hatred, and I don't think Scully is jealous. I think she gets frustrated that Mulder's attention drifts from the case.
Well, yeah, I buy that too. I think it can be both. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of concern, but there's jealousy that she doesn't really know how to acknowledge it within herself.
You mentioned the writing. So do you think, well, I can infer that you didn't think the writing did a very good job of establishing that tension or that what they were trying to do. You don't think the writing serviced that at all? Agent John?
I'm loath to say this. I think that Chris Carter is a genius, obviously. He created the show, created the characters. I don't think his scripts are the best scripts. I just from the ones that I've seen so far.
Well, how could they be, right? They're trying to establish a very cinematic kind of approach to television. So you're trying to squeeze in 2-hour stories in
Yeah.
40 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. I just think that there's always too many things that are lacking, or there's. I think he wants to do too much.
Okay.
In the time allotted. He knows he's only got 40 minutes, and I just think it's. I don't think the writing was. I mean, I think the writing was okay. I just think once again there were these very tantalating kernels that then didn't go anywhere.
And that's one of the reasons why I felt there were some challenges in the episode, things that kind of took me out of the story they were trying to tell. And there were too many of them, or there were many of them scattered throughout. Okay, so then what was the hope, or what was the function of the love interest element of the story?
It seems to me like people are getting a different idea of what the pretext to the relationship may have been, because I think it's probably the effectiveness of the relationship in the sort of modern times, as regards like when they meet in the car park and stuff like that. That depends quite a lot on what the pretext was like, I think. And
okay.
I think other people may be like underestimating it more than I am. It seems
no,
like
there's obviously some kind of story, some kind of history between the characters, right? But in this particular story, what's the purpose behind the love interest? I mean, they could have played it as just, this is historical, it's exposition. This is what happened before, and there's a little bit of tension between the characters, but they try to fan the flame of this sexual stuff. So what was the purpose behind that?
Can I ask
please.
a question on that? And you guys then I'll shut up for a moment anyway. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on at this point in the series, were the fans already at a point where they're like, ooh, I hope they get together? And if so, is that where some of this came from, is, to show a little more sexual tension? Or can you guys explain the climate at the time?
Well, there was an interview with Chris Carter, and he basically said that Phoebe was going to be a recurring character, that she was going to kind of keep coming back into his life and be a bit of a, pull to and fro. But the reaction from fans was just so like, well, why is she here? What are you doing? We're interested in this dynamic, whatever it is, whatever it isn't, will they, won't they? And she was scrapped effectively, apparently, because of that, was what his comment was anyway, whether or not he just realized that actually it didn't work. And, but he claimed it was in response to feedback.
And there's also a comment from Chris Carter where he said like the fans loved to hate Phoebe Green. But also I think it wasn't just the fan response that she didn't come back, but also perhaps like the dissatisfaction that the production staff had with the episode, basically. Because I know like they've talked quite a bit about like that the episode needed significant editing and stuff like that, and they thought it was going to turn out better than it actually did.
Well, up to this point in the series, we've seen there's a little bit of, connection between Mulder and Scully. And, as we were just talking about, the fans were wanting to see that blossom more. But up to this point, we've just seen Mulder and Scully as professionals, as friends, as little boy lost or little boy found in the case of Mulder. Do you think the purpose behind introducing this element was to lay the foundation of him as a sexual character, as a man, not just a little boy, not just a friend, but someone who could, or has, or, that kind of relationship as a way to plant the seed. Could that have been what it was?
I mean,
I like
it might have been an attempt at it, but I don't think it went very well because he just doesn't seem that into it. Like, he sort of seems like he's really confused and sort of drawn back to the past and just, oh, what was that? Oh, yeah, it was a thing. Oh, but you're really dangerous. You're mean. You're tempting me. It was like she's some weird femme fatale, nostalgic ghost that was just kind of warming up in front of him. He's like, oh, I'm distracted over here. But then they just didn't seem to have like any kind of actual, I guess because the witty repartee between him and Scully's so sharp and so sweet and so, and we've seen them go through a lot together by this point, that what are you going to put up in comparison with that's going to seem like a genuine threat, right? And I don't know what the answer is, but I know this wasn't it.
It seems like Chris Carter didn't sort of learn from the or maybe he did, it's debatable, I think, from the mistake, as I'm sure a lot of people would regard it, of including the character of Ethan in the pilot that was then written out and edited out and ended up in deleted scenes and stuff like that, who was to be a boyfriend of Scully. But that was due to the studio. And maybe he thought, well, if I can get past the studio and have more sort of active relationship between like one of the protagonists and the love interest, I wonder how the fans will react to it, because at that point he wouldn't have known.
Agent Lisa, I found that the way Mulder usually describes the relationship with Green when he's talking to Scully to be almost like middle school friends talking about the girl that kind of likes him. And oh no, I remember when she was. Does it strike you in that same vein, the way he kind of brings up the negative aspects of Green's and his relationship with her? Does it strike you as almost like that little boy-esque quality?
It didn't strike me the same way.
Okay.
I just took it as, someone who's once bitten, twice shy, but he was bitten by a sexy shark. Who doesn't want to swim in those waters again? Right. I've certainly done that before I got married. Went back to some just terrible people because it was hot. And I think that he was trying to talk himself out of it, even though he was still interested.
Okay.
As far as the little boy thing, yeah, I agree with Agent Bennett that it seemed to be sort of an unsuccessful attempt for a more long-term, overarching idea to make Mulder attractive to viewers as a man and not be friend-zoned. I think they tried doing that with both Mulder and Scully and trying to show, like, see, people think they're cute, other people like them, and the viewers are meant to go, oh, pity pat, yes, they what a great romantic lead. But I think what really fired people up was the chemistry between Mulder and Scully. And, I can think of many, many friends and colleagues and family members who were greatly inspired by the Mulder and Scully dynamic and were seeking that in their own love lives. So
it does seem that it was almost forced, doesn't it? I mean, it seemed like they were saying, at this point in a series, there is usually some kind of romantic tension between a male and female character. So let's try to introduce some of that. And it didn't work because they already established a relationship that was different to that and enjoyed by the audience that they were developing.
I don't mind the
Yeah.
idea of
Right.
a woman to make Scully jealous or a man to make Mulder jealous. It's just the execution in this episode was not ideal.
So that leads to the next question. It's about Scully and Green. When you contrast those characters, they were distinctly different, weren't they?
Except for the red hair.
Well, their characters were different. So how would you describe Scully, and how would you describe Green? And why were the writers or the showrunners trying to establish this contrasting dynamic?
I think it's what Lisa and Agent Bennett have already, kind of said. I would have been interested to see what would have happened if they had tried this Green character in like season 3 or something. I think that we would have had a much different reaction, because by then we would really know our characters. I don't know. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if they had just done that later.
Well, I found Green to be. We talked about this prior to the start of the podcast. This flirtatious character. This feminine femme fatale kind of quality. And Scully's a little bit more wholesome, a little bit more, business. She's. We already established that she is a woman who's interested in a relationship with somebody else earlier on in the series, right? In the season, but it just seemed like maybe they were trying to create a triangle of sorts, right? Where you have a choice. You can choose the one character who's a little more wholesome, a little more down to earth, a little more sincere, and then you've got this flirtatious femme fatale character, and establishing that dynamic kind of creates tension. But as we've already said, it didn't work. It didn't work because no one cared about a love triangle. They were only cared with the duality of their kind of connection and how they were growing together as a partnership.
But I think they also previously tried sort of the same sort of experiment in the Jersey Devil, with Scully, like at the party with that guy that she was very briefly dating and stuff. And
yeah, the birthday party guy. Yeah.
I would have thought they would have like seen that. Well, it's not going to work because viewers are not interested in a
right
triangle.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it was just too early, maybe.
And in that episode, you could see Scully kind of saying, "Yeah, that's not really for me." And Mulder, he doesn't really. I'm not sure he says that. You sense that he kind of feels that way, but never actually says it at the end. We're left with him looking at the final cassette tape that she sent, and him rejecting it, right, putting it away. So that's symbolic.
But he didn't throw it out, did he?
He didn't throw it out. Okay, so at the we get to the end. We're getting to the end of the episode now, when the whole fire thing happens. The question is that one of us asked was, if Phoebe didn't or hadn't drenched Cecil in the accelerant, would Scully have shot him?
No, she's a professional, and she's got this is what they say about dogs. She's got good bite inhibition. She's not an impulsive person. She wouldn't have shot him. But she certainly, look, unless her hand was really forced. But I think she's a very thoughtful person. I don't think she would have.
I think she would have. I think her hand was forced, and I think she may have resorted to desperate measures in those circumstances.
I think the trouble she's got is, aren't the children still upstairs with Mulder at that point? So if the house goes up, that's everyone gone, right? And I think she's smarter than that. So I think she would have let him go out the house, followed him out, and then done a wounding shot, take him down. Yeah, get him on the floor. So it would have been delayed, but yeah. When that moment happens, when Phoebe throws it, I genuinely thought when I first watched it, she was just like chucking a glass of water, like, oh no, a person. I better And then and I was like, oh no, it's that. Okay, fair enough. But again, it just felt
did
a
it make
bit like
sense that in the middle of a fire that she made herself a cup of hot coffee? Like I was a little. I'm not usually a very like strategic thinker or someone who like, But in this case, I was like, no, it doesn't make sense.
I thought it was interesting to learn about the roots of the episode where Chris Carter was saying that it was based on like memories that he had as a boy, having to spend a night, I think it was a night, in like a house that burned down after the firemen had been there, and how that was like so scary.
Yeah, you can tell that they were drawing on a lot of personal experience, personal ideas in the first couple of seasons, right? They were until the characters kind of had a good full life of their own. But yeah, it's again, one of the challenges I had in this particular episode was it seemed like they were rolling the choice dice. It's like, what are we going to do next? Okay, we're going to have someone throw accelerant on, it's like, let's throw it against the wall and see what sticks kind of thing. It wasn't like someone had a vision of the whole story and they mapped it out. It was like, okay, here's the context of this problem. How are they going to get out of it? Ideas, people. And they kind of all threw out their ideas and they just went with, okay, I like that one. Let's do that.
Yeah, again, though, I think the actor saved it. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. Who played the psycho?
Mark Sheppard.
Mark Sheppard, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he saves it for me. I mean, I really enjoyed watching him throughout the episode. I really got into that. Yeah, I really did enjoy it. I loved all the cigarette stuff. With the kids, come on, you want to smoke? Don't you? And he's got the 3 cigarettes in his mouth. And, that's why it's so disappointing. Some of, we've really gotten bogged down because I know that a lot of the episode is about Green and Mulder and Scully, but he was a lot of fun to watch. I really loved, and I liked the character, even though his motivation is kind of wonky. We don't really know exactly. We don't get enough of a psychological profile of him to really get him. But I think the actor totally saves the episode. For me, anyway, he completely saves the episode because I really enjoyed watching him. Every scene he was in, even the really dumb ones, like with the dog. I mean, I just really liked watching him in this.
I agree with that. And I think I love the scene in the bar, where he's like chatting up the already drunk woman. He's just like, oh my God, fire. And then she's like, oh my God, fire. And it's just absolutely brilliant. Like the comedy there, apart from anything, is great. And I think the thing about him, like as an actor, it's the lighting's done really well, isn't it? And, he's just having a great time destroying lives. And that's what you want from a psychopath. You want someone who's really taking pleasure in it. So I really enjoy that kind of watching his journey through. Though I think, the motivation's patchy, isn't it? There's a weird discussion at the beginning about, like 3 MPs back in London and they're targeting the aristocracy and Windsor Castle's ablaze.
And something with some satanic childhood or something. I don't remember exactly.
Very weird.
It just, again, that's where I say the writing really fails. But at least, thank goodness we had him to really enjoy in the episode.
I agree with you, Lou. I really like that, the way he played that character. Well, also, like, I really like the special effects, like when the house is on fire, and I remember, like, being a kid watching that episode, like, for the first time and being, like, amazed by, like, all the walls are coming on fire and stuff like that. And I remember, like, Dave Gautier being on this channel and speaking about how they did that, and it was such.
I kept thinking about him I thought about him through the whole episode. I thought, because I think that's one of the things that he said he would like to come back and talk about is that episode, because he is such a fire expert. That would be a lot of fun to talk to him in depth, because there was a lot of cool fire in this episode. I sound like a firebug. And I'm really not. But I kept thinking about Dave through this whole episode, like, I like how, I'm trying to think. It wasn't the portrait of her, but it was the portrait that just catches fire in the middle. It's when he lights his own, when he lights the cigarette with no hands. I thought of all these little things that Dave would have had to have created, and I'd love to get his take on all of that.
All the stuff that is now, all the stuff that is now done through CGI, right? Through some kind of computer generated imagery, but would have been very practical, hands-on, right? Expertise. It's amazing what they were able to accomplish with those kind of technical special effects.
Yeah, something I read about Mark Sheppard was he did every single stunt with fire himself, except for the full body burn outside where they had a stunt person in. And the stunt person who was doing that full body burn, it was 2 minutes of full body burn, which is insane anyway. And they were shooting it from lots of different angles. And then when he drops to the floor, they obviously have to film it for a little bit before they put him out. When they put him out and open the suit up, they realized he'd run out of air 25 seconds before, they reckon. So it was an insane, performance anyway.
Well, that could have been the end of the series right there.
Yeah, totally. But Mark Sheppard, the bit where he sort of produces the cigarette and produces it, he did it all with sleight of hand. So he learned loads of tricks off whatever or something, presumably. But yeah, he did all of that. So it's really cool. Like, you could tell the commitment that actor had to the parts of the role. A, he was brilliant, but B, he went for all the stunts, which, massive kudos in my books.
So let's keep with that same character. One of the questions that one of us wanted to address was, at the end we see that he's regenerating, right? They say it at the end. His body is amazingly regenerating itself. And the question was, would he be back, or, and would he be studied by the government? So that's the general question of, would he be studied by the government? Yay or nay? Do you think the government that's been portrayed, they would put him off somewhere in
very fire starter? And I know that book had definitely come out by then. I think the movie had too. But it's such a natural. It's such a natural for another weird physiological phenomenon that we could make soldiers that could burn up and then come right back. I thought, that's a natural.
So I'm looking around. I think that everyone was nodding their heads. Dan, you would agree? Would you say that they're probably being studied, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but also, I thought what just occurred to me was whether, you were talking about cigarettes and fire and stuff like that, and I thought, is the connection with cigarettes just coincidental, or could it suggest that he's working for the cigarette smoking man, or got some connection with the?
Yeah, I think that was probably incidental, but if he were to make an appearance later in the series, that would be, I imagine, a connection that would be developed or utilized.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a line that's said earlier, maybe by the fire expert guy, I can never remember his name, but I think fire has a certain genius. It's got a demon poetry. I mean, he's a representation of evil, right? Evil never dies. It smolders around for a while and then it kicks back in. So yeah, of course he's going to revitalize, and of course they're going to kind of test on him. But it's that kind of incendiary kind of, it's almost a precursor to incel culture, I would argue, with this guy. Actually, there is an analysis of him, isn't there? Yeah,
nice
absolutely.
Nice choice of the word.
Thank you so much.
Nice wordplay.
I think there's that really, hideous nature, isn't there, where he's basically trying to impress women and children with his little fire party tricks. It's just that he happens to, because of all this repressed sexual kind of tension, literally explode. And there was a really cool case, a true story in 1982, with a young boy in Rome called Benedetto Supino. And this young lad was kind of on the cusp of kind of hitting puberty, basically. And he was able to set fire to things, and he wasn't able to control it. So if you gave him a book, it would go up in flames. And, there's lots of myth and legend, but this one's quite well documented. And it's very interesting that basically anything he touched became an explosion, and you know, he was setting fire to things all over the place, and they tried
When
all
was
these
this?
different ways. So again,
When was this?
1982.
Oh, so this
So
could be
yeah,
source material for.
yeah. And Chris
Ah,
Carter talks about wanting to do a spontaneous human combustion story, but it just feels too implausible, you know what I mean? Because it's such an interesting phenomenon, but how do you develop that into a story? But instead, this idea of pyrokinesis, you know, it was recurring in sort of recent-ish at the time case studies. And it is that idea, isn't it, of like the fiery teenager and what you do with that raw passion and raw energy. And if it is misdirected, it causes chaos, right? So it's an interesting one.
Okay, so what is on the cassette that that Green gives Mulder?
A dirty
is-
limerick.
Oh, any come to your mind right now, John? Oh, actually, never mind.
But I
Just a
thought,
whole bunch of manipulation and an
Wow.
attempt to make herself charming and desirable, like just more of the same nonsense. And I think you're right. I mean, he didn't destroy it, but he put it away because he needed a little bit of a break.
You don't really like those kind of girls or kind of women, do you, Lisa?
I was
I mean,
thinking,
I guess my bias is coming out, but yeah, I found her to be such an unpleasant character.
Right.
And I didn't believe all that stuff about how she was top of her class and hyper intelligent, because no one that I've ever met that's hyper intelligent behaves like that much of a child. Yuck.
well, I always think that, like, probably the way that she, basically her modus operandi or whatever, the way that she operates, is to subvert expectations. So I'm not surprised that you're saying, like, I don't think that she's super intelligent, because I think the point is that you underestimate her intelligence. So I think that's quite effective that you're saying that. And I think that when, you know, they're in the car at the start and think that the bomb's going to go off, and then she subverts expectations there, I think she does it again at the end, actually. And I think that is actually what's on the tape. That she leads Mulder to believe that it's not going to be music, and that it actually is. That's what I think.
Oh, what music would it be, Dan? Go on, give us some tracks. Firestarter by
Good idea.
Prodigy, maybe.
Something about Sherlock Holmes as well.
You know,
Burning Love, you know.
I thought that there was more, that final moment with Green when she's with the husband, that to me reframed the context of the entire episode with Green. So
In a good or bad way?
In a bad way. It was obviously she's manipulative, but I saw it as she's having an affair with the husband.
Yeah.
They're coming to America. They're trying to she wants to keep the husband safe because of her affair, because she wants to become the next lady of the house, right? If something were to happen. So she reaches out to her old friend and former lover, who will then work very hard to keep the family safe. And as a result of that, she'll be receiving praise and she'll be receiving kudos and, you know, more and more added value to her career and her relationship. And, you know, it wasn't just, oh, my old flame, I would like to, you know, reconnect. It was, no, I'm going to use this person once again. And that speaks to the kind of person I think she was. Agent Lisa, you said that she's not really super intelligent. She just, you know, anyone who's really super intelligent never acts that way. Well, I think she's probably acted that way to get ahead. And that's the contrasting character that I think they were presenting. They were presenting a person who was equally or equal to Scully professionally, at least on the surface, but her character was so flawed because of the methods by which she has rise to the level that she has professionally. That you see the dark versus the light, right? You see Scully as someone who's risen because of her skill and her abilities. So for me, that last moment, it wasn't just a random moment of her flirting with the husband. It was, caught in the act of, talking with my lover about the situation. And it really painted her, if you didn't already have a bad look or had a bad idea about who she was, it really took her down many, many steps in my consideration of the character. Okay, so favorite characters. Let's get to that. Favorite characters. Pyro guy.
I think we've already kind of said, like, in terms of how awesome the performance was and the characterization was cool. Again, the motivation was lacking, but it was great fun to watch him play out like that. So I really like him.
Yeah, and the pyrotechnic scientist.
That's the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah,
because I say it all the time. An actor who knows his role and doesn't do more than is necessary.
That's right. You said, in fact, I thought about when you said that. That was one of our first sessions. You said that, and it's funny because I find myself going back to that on every episode with the supporting cast, and I just thought, oh, he's just great because he's just really creepy.
Because the way he rubs the projection of the fire, right? And it's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Perfect.
I thought it was just perfect. I love that. Yeah.
Anybody
I
else?
liked the kids, you guys. The kids were they had a very short little character arc where they started off very sort of trusting and innocent and curious. And by the end of their interaction with the pyromaniac, they were suspicious and guarded. And I thought that was really interesting to give them such a rich little character arc in such a short period of time. Plus, the kids pulled it off. A lot of children are just horrible actors, but these guys were really good.
Yeah, they were good.
I enjoyed that little bit.
Agent Dan?
I was going to say the kids, but I think especially when he's talking with them about doing the magic trick with the cigarettes and stuff like that. I think it's the boy, especially on the left, that I think does a better job because I noticed like the one on the right seems to like look at the camera accidentally and a little bit and stuff like that.
I found that the wife, who was the object of the affection, right, completely forgettable.
Yeah. In fact, I struggled to think, was she in it enough? And maybe she was, and she was just unmemorable. To have her be the object of obsession, I didn't feel like she went anywhere. Was she in it very much? Maybe I'm wrong. She was
three or four scenes.
Yeah.
I think because she has to play the role of, passive object, because that's the kind of guys that's the kind of women, this guy goes for. Basically she's Princess Diana in terms of looks, right? We've got to think
you're right. Actually, you're right.
Girl, and it's like pin-up princess. Well, she's just got to stand there and look pretty and be a good mum, right? And then everyone loves her. So I think there's a big thing there about, what is it that attracts guys like that?
I thought it's interesting. Sorry, I thought it's interesting that it's referred to that he goes for not only women but men too.
Oh,
that was in the profile, but there was no evidence that he'd done it, right? So wasn't it a suggestion that a profiled person would, but there was no evidence in the case? I'm not sure.
I was wondering about. He seemed a little bit flirty with the driver at the beginning. I thought he seemed a little bit flirty. Like I could see him starting to get obsessed with that guy, but maybe he was just using him as an ends to the means. But
which I suppose
I felt a little bit of sexual tension. Maybe it was just jealousy. I don't know.
Agent Bennett, I hadn't made that connection before. That Princess Diana, right, the British royals, and the two children. That's
Yeah.
that's Diana and Charles and their kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
And they're
Oh
kind
my
of pretty
gosh.
little white
Totally
boys, aren't
is.
they? You know, it's all
I
a bit
had
cliched.
completely glossed that over.
Yeah.
I
Could
had
there have
two.
been a
I
class
had two.
element to everything? Like, could it have been a matter of class that he's a worker, he's lower class, she is
The
reminiscent of
unattainable,
royalty, upper
unattainable
class?
princess.
Right. And so could there have been some ideas in, like, maybe it wasn't explicit in the episode, but maybe it was something that was present, that he had this resentment, which he kind of turned into sexual punishment, or the desire for sexual punishment.
Yeah. I think I absolutely. Yeah.
Something unattainable, something that's been he's been prevented from having, not just in a sexual or a relationship, right? A certain class that he hasn't been able to attain or would never be able to attain, right?
Yeah, there's that sociological aspect of it too.
That's
I'll
interesting.
show you. I'll burn your house down.
Right, you're not safe, right? You're keeping me out, but you're not safe from me. You're not safe from the lower class. Interesting. Okay, food for thought.
I thought that it was quite interesting that a book that I've got says the British Lord Malcolm Marston was named after the show's chief hairdresser.
I bet they love that.
Yeah.
All right, X's out of 10. What would you give the episode? Let's go with Agent Lisa.
I'm going to give it a 6. That's pretty low for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't put my finger on why until Agent Bennett called the episode cheesy, and that word perfectly embodies my reaction. It was campy. It was cheesy. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It is the X-Files after all. I loved it. But for the X-Files, it was only a 6 for me because I think the writing could have been better. If they had played it right, this could have been kind of a sexy Archie comic with Betty and Veronica, with us rooting for Veronica, us rooting for like this interloper, and us going, you know what, Scully, maybe step up your game and learn how to flirt a little bit. Like, maybe, you know what I mean? But they didn't.
I think that's what Chris Carter thought he was onto.
And they didn't, that the writing was not up to snuff. And there are other episodes in the X-Files written by other writers that is so complex and nuanced and beautiful and witty, and this just wasn't one of those episodes. So for me, it's a lower score.
Okay, so we got 6. 6 is the number to beat. Agent Bennett, how about you? What would you give?
Well, like Agent Lisa, I absolutely love all of the episodes in their different ways, but for me this is a 5. It's so cheesy. I mean, the only reason it's a 5, right, is because first of all, the guy playing the caretaker Bob is so good, so he carries it. But also from a purely comical point of view, the scene where they're upstairs in the bedroom, the fire's breaking out, Mulder picks up a towel and is just batting. I'm like, what are you doing? I love you, but get out of the room, you absolute idiot. I mean, it was so cute. And so I did laugh a lot during this episode. So that's not normally why I score these things, but it was really funny. That's enough to make it a 5 for me. But yeah, it's cheesy, it's campy, it's cute, but it's certainly not well written.
Yeah, and if they wanted Mulder to be taken seriously as a sex symbol, then that scene undid it all. It's like, oh, you fool, you gross idiot, put down the towel.
And he doesn't look like a good kisser. That kiss is terrible.
It looked so bad. That looked like a 2 out of 10 kiss.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Agent Dan, what would you give the episode out of 10?
Before we went live, I thought like an 8, but now I'm thinking probably a 9.
Okay.
I had such good memories of loving this episode as a kid.
All right. So the nostalgia has kicked in as well.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Agent John?
6.5 for me. And again, it's all about the actor, Mark Shepard for me. I really, again, since we had Dave on, I was really fascinated with the firework that was done for the episode. It had nothing to do with the story. I give that like a 2. And the script I give, and the acting, other than that, not much. But 6.5, just because of the effects work and Mark Shepard. So.
I liked there were some things that we learned about Mulder's backstory, about the fear of fire, and it may be, the reason why he reacts so innocently or, so idiotically when the fire breaks out, pounds at it with a towel, right? Because, he's got he's still traumatized as a child, and he's still reacting as a little boy might initially, right? So there's maybe some connection there. But I like the banter between Scully and Mulder, and some of the ways that Scully intoned her responses. Like her first statement to Green was really telling, like, hi. Like it was this upward inflection, which I think really captured the kind of curious yet doubtful kind of quality that she has, or that she sees Green as, or this person
How
who doesn't
about
really get.
that FU wave she gave her on the way out? Like,
Yeah.
it was just like giving the middle finger, but in a more dignified way.
So if the episode had only been Scully and Mulder, right? If it'd just been that banter and that language, if I was only giving that and some of the, because it's about their development as characters and about their relationship together, I probably would have given it a higher ranking, a higher rating. But there were just too many things that seemed to be standalone, like they weren't really supported, and too many things that were awkward or, odd. So I'm leaning more toward Agent Annie and Agent Lisa with this. I'm probably going to go with a 5. But I liked the characters, the villain, right, Shepard. I think the actor did a nice job, but even he was a little overindulgent in a couple of those scenes, right? I mean, I know he's supposed to be crazy, but he didn't have to be that crazy, right? There was no subtlety in some of the choices that he made as an actor, but I still enjoyed the performance. So yeah, that's how I would score it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Anyone want to add anything? Agent Lisa.
Yeah, the acting that you just mentioned, the overacting, I have a theory that
Please.
At that time in the 90s, there was a style of acting when you were meant to be mentally ill that was over the top, like, I'm crazy. It's like
We call that the Nick Cage.
very much
The
Nick
Nicolas
Cage, who was a big deal in the 90s. And also,
like The Mask.
what was that movie with Brad Pitt? It was a sci-fi movie in the 90s, and he ends up in an insane asylum.
Oh,
7?
12 Monkeys.
Oh, 12
12
Monkeys.
Monkeys. There were quite a few characters that were similarly
Very twitchy characters.
crazy.
Twitchy characters.
You're right.
Yeah.
And
You're
then
right.
the previous episode of the X-Files in Eve, when the woman who is otherwise an excellent actress
Right.
did that whole fava bean gross mouth thing, and and it's like, we get it, you're crazy. So it was like, it's just like this kind of trend in acting at the time that if you're playing someone that's mentally ill, you have to chew the scenery.
Right.
It's just
it's
a
like
theory.
jazz hands for the crazy
Yes.
set.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, actually. I really think that you're onto something with that. I think that's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. But again, that's that interesting look at the time that the episode was shot, and what was going on in terms of, the acting around that episode. And that's a really interesting point. Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's absolutely true.
Anyone else care to add anything to the conversation?
There were two things I realized, like as we've been talking, because I thought, like, when we've been rating the episode, I didn't really say much about, apart from having great memories of it. But like, I'm a massive Sherlock Holmes fan, basically, and so love the references in this, and also have like quite traumatic memories of a chip pan fire that my grandmother had when I was a kid. So
Right.
I'm quite scared of fire as well. So I can relate to it in that sense as well.
Right, and that's, I think that the reason one of the reasons why we learned so much about Mulder's childhood throughout the series is because they want us to be able to connect
Yeah.
those experiences with our experiences so that we feel like, you know, they're believable characters. But I think that it, you know, I was thinking about this myself earlier, Agent Dan, that, I mean, at its heart, right, one of the ways you can think of the X-Files is like a crime procedural. They're always trying to figure out, you know, what's happened, and, you know, they go about it with certain processes and, you know, leaps of faith, or, you know, whatever they do. But it's very Sherlock Holmes-esque, right? In that you've got
Yeah.
a very smart, little socially awkward kind of main character, and then you've got Dr. Holmes, right? And you've got Dr. Scully, who's there to kind of ground in the science and to help kind of keep him on planet Earth, right? Literally.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's some parallels there. Thanks. Anyone
Thank
else?
I just really like Scully's final bit of English accent towards the end.
I did like that.
It's a lovely way to pull it in, isn't it? It's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and then
I
he's
like
like,
that.
you can see the fear in his face, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. And
I
it's
like
like,
that too.
order has been restored. It's going to be
Yes,
fine.
I like. That's exactly how I felt. Yeah, yeah.
And they've reached that teasing earlier in the series, or earlier in the season. There was some teasing, but it seemed like very preliminary, very early stages, a little bit awkward, not really sure how they were going to take it. But now they've settled into kind of like this kind of playful
Yeah.
shorthand, and we are also part of it now too.
Yeah.
So it really captures the character rapport well, for sure. Okay. Well, I want to say thanks to Agent Dan, Agent John, Agent Bennett, Agent Lisa, for joining the discussion today. And thank you, the viewers, for being here as well. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments section what you thought about this particular episode. Please remember to like and subscribe to the video. And we'll see you next time. The truth is still out there. Thanks.